kiss and hug me. Come on, strong, go on and love me. Let's not waste that big old moon. Wake up and smell the perfume. Just say if you want to be more than friends.
Welcome, Charles. I am so glad to have Charles Terrence Harper on the Social Web Cafe interview today.
Good to be here, Deborah. Very good.
I really enjoyed our chat the other day. You were so conversational, so easy to talk to, and you have such wonderful ideas and positivity. I love that.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, I think it probably comes from, and we talked about that, having lived with 12 teenagers. You have to learn how to have some. You have to learn how to talk fast. You have to learn how to be positive.
You know what? You're jumping ahead, but we're all dying to know. I know I've heard it, but I'm sure the audience wants to hear the story of 12 teenagers.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I were, your typical, your typical dinks, like double income, no kids.
Oh, I'm like, I hadn't heard that. I was like, dinks.
Right, yeah.
Dink. Did you say dinks?
Yeah. Double income, no kids.
All right.
So we have our first daughter. And so my wife's working 70 hours. I'm working 70 hours. So we said, okay, well, we need to kind of kill this for a second. So she left Arthur Andersen, and then I kind of switched from the bank. But then that still wasn't really doing it because, we still had this gap in time. We were missing each other. We were sort of missing our kid. She was 5 months old. So the school comes to Chicago, Milton Hershey School. And so they say, we want people to take care of our our kids in a house, be house parents. So, I'm kind of semi-impulsive. So I said, well, let's go see what they have to say. And so we went, and then they met with us and the whole thing, and we went out and met with them, and then they called us back. We'd never had child care experience. I'm thinking they're not going to call us. So they call us and they say, we want you to come out here and be house parents. So
see, you're so likable, Charles. They just knew instantly that you were a team for that.
I don't know. Or just crazy.
Okay, that's good.
We just literally, in a month's time, we sold our house, and so we moved out to Hershey. And so basically, they put you in a house with 12 teenage. First, we started with girls, and I can tell you that I learned everything not to do, living with 12 girls. And then 3 months later, they said, this is probably going to work out better with boys. And so they put us with boys. We were there for 13 years. That was really it. I could tell you hundreds of adventures as dictated by the teenage boys, but that was really it.
Are you going to write a book series?
In all seriousness, we are, because we kind of learned a lot about how to really get some teenagers to do some stuff some of the time, and that's a higher percentage than a lot of them.
That is pretty good. That's admirable. Although you could also write a dating series for like teenage boys on what not to do with teenage girls.
Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. All of a sudden something.
Yeah. Well, we are. Well, I guess the real kind of connection point is we're writing this book. We're calling taking your talents to Main Street, and really it's for that age group because they've all gotten older. But we're finding out that even though they've gone to college, some of them are coming out literally, and they're coming out into these economy. They can't find jobs. That's no different from anybody else. That's a lot of big folks. And so really the book is really just all about, okay, well, men, maybe you can take all of these really good social media skills that you have. These kids, they know how to do, I call them kids, they know how to do stuff with YouTube we couldn't even dream of doing, and we're trying to catch up with them. And I'm saying, well, look, you've got small businesses, and they need to do this stuff. They probably can't afford to pay you starting out, but if you can go and lend your services to them, you learn how to do something real, you help them build their business, and you really get a valuable experience so that not that you can put it on a resume, but it's transferable. You can then go to another small business and say, well, look, I know how to do this stuff, and I can help you really grow your business. So that's really what we're trying to, that's really our connection point, kind of our giving back to them in a way, you know, that we got back from that experience, you know.
And that's kind of, it's like the resume plus the portfolio. But this is what I've done. I mean, maybe it's not to the, like the executive resume, if you will, but you can say, hey, I've done this. Look at YouTube. Look what I've done here. Look at how I've grown in my skill set with online.
No, and it's real because, I mean, they just know, and it's funny because, I mean, they're intuitive with this stuff. It's kind of like we've got to go and take a class. Like you know, right, yeah, it's like they just get in there and they just say, no, you don't want to say that, or you don't want to do that, and they just do stuff and it just works, and they're not trying to make it work. Like, and so I'm saying, well, why don't you go and lend that skill because people really need it. And so that's kind of what we've been connecting with. It's funny, I read this article today, and it's probably about 2 weeks ago, and it's from this guy Ken McDonald, and he's got an article out. Now this is for college grads, and he's saying, this is why I'm not going to hire you, right? And so the article says, basically, I've got your dream job, I've got a dream company, but I'm not going to hire you because you have probably not the right set of skills that we really need. We really need people not only who know how to code, but who understand how all these things integrate in order to help companies make money. And so he's saying that if you can't do that, and you have not invested in yourself. Now, interestingly, the article basically said, I don't really care what your college degree said. If you don't have any evidence that you invested in yourself, apart from the degree, we don't want to hire you. And
that's interesting.
So it is. And so, you know, you think that $100,000 or $200,000 that you put into your degree, if you're a parent,
you buy another house,
right? Exactly. And this guy is saying, I'm not hiring your son or your daughter because he didn't invest in yourself. I mean, it's a real shift, I think. But I think it's kind of common, you know, in what we're seeing, you know.
Would you think that maybe in today's economy it takes almost more street sense? I don't know what the actual definition of street sense, but I feel like there's a lot more requirement for innovation in your approach.
Yeah, no, it is. And because you just sort of have to, I don't think you have to have intuition, but at some point you do have to figure out, you know, how all these things end up helping somebody to make enough in order to pay you. So it's no longer, so we don't really, we can't necessarily have this expectation that, you know, money's just going to come from someplace. And so it's almost as if they've got to be able to take what they know in order to help somebody to generate enough profit. Now, I'm not saying everybody's got to work for a business. I'm not saying that everybody's got to work for profit, but I think they've all got to kind of come to the sense, and we've all got to come to the sense that, hey, this money's got to come from someplace in order to pay somebody. And they've got to be able to put skills to make, you know, all this stuff happen. And, you know, I don't think we've done that, you know, in terms of, you know, how we educate people. I say we, I don't educate people, but how the education system, right, yeah, and society, right, yeah. So, yeah, I'm really wanting to write that really more as my kind of gift back to them, you know, to really kind of hopefully inspire them to not rely on, you know, their education. I think the certification, like education kind of certified us, right, to go out and do stuff. But that certification, whether it's a BS degree, a master's degree, it doesn't always matter anymore. It's not automatic. It doesn't mean that, okay, I've got a master's in this field. Doesn't mean that certifies me to walk in and expect to be paid enough to get a car and a house and some place to live. It doesn't mean
not
that
like
anymore.
It used to.
No, it doesn't.
Like bachelor's says, oh, I can go flip burgers, and I'm committed enough because I completed this degree that now I will show up for work. I mean, I feel like it's just really been minimized.
It has been, and without apologies. I mean, it used to be kind of like we sort of apologize, kind of like, well, we hope that this thing's going to come about, and the poor economy. But I mean, this CEO, I think, is kind of indicative, and I've heard that sentiment before that, hey, we're not apologizing for the fact that we don't have that kind of capital to hire you. We're not going to put that kind of capital into hiring you. You've got to go and demonstrate something that's going to really matter to this company.
You have to sell yourself, but not sell yourself out.
Yeah, and it's a fine line. All of the rules have just kind of changed. There's no textbook anymore on how to do it. I mean, you can kind of say, that you generally want to find some place where you're good at something. You want to find some place you can go where you've got skills that you have demonstrated. But again, you talked about the street smart. At some point, that all that intelligence has got to funnel into something where somebody's going to make enough in order to pay them, and it's just a sense they're going to have to get.
And I think that's a gem right there for anyone listening that's looking for that way to pay the bills, if you will. Is look at the ingenuity, even the intuitive nature as far as finding where the company benefits financially from your services. And sometimes benefiting financially might be, hey, I'm helping with the technology so it doesn't break, so that you're not wasting money in that area. But to be able to present that to a company, that's a great idea, Charles. That's a gem.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's and even for companies, a lot of us we start out as solopreneurs, and we start out and we go out and we consult. And sometimes, before the business, first of all, the business owns you before you own it. And then, while that's happening, sometimes it means you might have to go. You might have to do some writing. You might have to do some freelancing. You might have to do a whole lot of things just until the business is doing for you what it's supposed to do. And again, it just takes, I don't know what the right word is. You called it street smarts, hustle, whatever it is. You just got to.
I haven't heard that word for a while. I like that. I'm starting to go do the hustle. Okay.
And, and I know what you're talking about. Right, exactly. But I know what you're talking about, though. But it is. I mean, you just have to do some things to make some stuff happen. You and I, we have a mutual friend, Andy Nathan, and he's got this blog post. I was talking to him the other day, and this is probably common knowledge to maybe some people on the Hangout. I didn't know this, that the guy, I guess, is Fred Smith, who owned FedEx, and he had to take X number of thousands of dollars, go to Vegas, make $27,000, and that $27,000 was a difference between him having enough cash flow to get through the next month and not having it. So I mean, I don't know what you call that, but who does that? Well, somebody who does that is somebody who just has to go out and make things happen. Now, I am not saying
wow,
you need to go to Vegas, but
he's talented at the slots or
But you do, but it's just not that. It's not that automatic. Like I'm going to get that position. It's going to pay me. They're always going to be there. They're going to take care of me. Man, it just doesn't exist anymore. And,
how long ago was that? Like maybe the 50s? Yeah, I remember even a few decades ago the loyalty aspect was gone, because you watch these old movies where it was like, oh wow, my grandfather worked here and my father worked here and I worked here. And there was just this sense of taking care of the community, and that's been gone for a while.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like that generation kind of gave us that expectation, and then it seems like just as we hit the 90s and the 2000s, it was vanishing in the 90s and the 2000s. It just went away, and then now in the 2010s, it's a free for all. It's just
like
gone.
Pension?
Oh, what is that?
Exactly. My kid's like, huh? What's that word? Yeah. Well, that might be what Grandma and Grandpa are living off right now, but don't expect anything as far as
exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, Charles, man, you have such great philosophies. But let's stop for just a moment and let's tell the audience who you are. We've already fallen in love with what you're saying, but now let's talk a little bit. This is a time, the shameless plug. So let's.
Okay. All right. Well, I really well, first of all, my wife and I we homeschool. So and we homeschool primarily because at this point, and we've done it all the way up until our daughters have gotten into high school, and really kind of the next step kind of fits into where we are heart-wise, which is, I mean, the whole taking your talent to Main Street is really for them too. I want them to be able to, first of all, as a, since I have daughters, I never want them to be dependent on any guy. If they decide to get married, I don't want them to be dependent. I want them to be able to generate their own income wherever they are, with whatever. If they have nothing, that they can just start from nothing and they can build something. So I've tried to do that
I'm
over
sorry.
the course of years.
I'm trying not to. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm trying not to think this, but I'm like, all the 12, 13 years experience with all the boys in the house. I thought, man, you know how to read them as far as your daughters go and protecting your daughters. You know exactly. You know the moves.
Right.
You know the lingo. Okay, that had nothing to do with what you said, but
it has everything to do with what I said.
it's like
everything to do. Right. Yes.
Don't mess with Charles' daughters.
But man, and so we really and I think like and because I missed it when I was coming, and I can see different points in time when it was available to me that really, I mean, I loved what I learned working for a commercial bank. I still learn that. I mean, I sort of learned some things about how to be professional without trying. And I think that's what corporate America really teaches you more than anything. Because, I mean, I can sit down and write a memo and all that stuff. I can write an email that makes it sound like a memo. And that kind of came from years of doing that. But having said that, I think that if I could have the experience with a real business and really learn how a business works, how a business grows, what happens from a small level, I would have liked to have done that. And I had those opportunities. I passed them up because I wanted the big, experience. I wanted the desk. I wanted the cubicle. I wanted I wanted all that stuff. And I got it. And it just didn't shape up. I want them to be able to do it themselves if they need to. And so that's kind of where we have been with homeschooling. And I guess you could say my desire is in working with the small businesses here. I don't want to be disingenuous or try to sound sanctimonious, but I really want to see them be able to at the very least make enough to take care of themselves and not have to struggle, because our little communities, wherever they are, I mean, that's the thing that's going to carry the community. I mean, the big companies, I don't have any problem with that. I'm not one of the folks who think, well, all the big box retailers moved out to small businesses. That's not my concern. My concern is that, these companies can, if they can just be a little better at getting the word out to people who really want to buy things from them, I think that they will. And that makes for a better community. And, a lot of the folks that have helped us since we've been coming along, they've been small businesses. So that's really just kind of where our whole thing is work-wise. But now on a personal level, it's really about family at some point. And so I work at home, my wife works at home, we homeschool. We have sacrificed a lot to do what we do. We've bypassed, we've got friends who, they go on cruises every year, and I'm thinking, you know what, I'd like to be doing that. We could just drop all this, we could end this. I could do all of this stuff, but still what we're building matters. It matters to what we're going to build for them, and it matters hopefully, in the future. So everything we're doing right now is really this building process, and so we're trying to transfer that to be able to help other people to do the same thing.
It sounds like when you're talking about even the small businesses and the large businesses, that there's a synergistic relationship between the two if they'll choose to work together. But when you're all done, it kind of distills down to the community and, like you said, the family.
It does, because because again, I mean, if you really there's a lot to be learned from big companies, and because they've got to do things systematically, because they've got to operate every day. I mean, I think that if you can have one of those, if you can have a corporate experience, it mattered a lot to me, and I'm glad I did those 5 years before we went to work at a boarding school, because it really formed my ability. Everything I'm able to do right now has everything to do with those 5 years I spent basically as a corporate underling, right? Getting, just starting from the bottom, having to do things for everyone, having to make sure that memos are right, I's were dotted, T's were crossed. But it now matters because I can kind of almost intuitively feel like I can communicate with somebody and be professional without having to sound professional. You know what I mean?
Without being stuffy.
Right.
Well, and I can attest to that. You're very easy to talk to, but you do have that professionalism and maybe it's just because I'm being biased because I have a corporate background as well. And it teaches you that business flow.
It does. And discipline. I mean, it's a discipline. I mean, you kind of realize that you have, well, I think what it teaches you is, and you can attest to this having been at a bank, you even because at a bank you can't say everything you want to say. You can't talk about everything you want to talk about, even if you saw it, even if it's true, because I mean, some of the stuff is client related, some of it is regulatory, some of it is compliance, and so you just can't go shooting your mouth off about whatever you think you do, and you learn to be disciplined, and then you have to learn how to be personable within those limits. And I think you can't learn that anyplace else, candidly, right? Candidly.
That's a good point.
Wrong. Yeah, outside of corporate America, I don't think.
You're absolutely right, and I didn't even, it's like you're learning it, and I didn't realize I was learning that until you just stated it. But you're absolutely right, and you got the water cooler where you can kind of talk with, your teammates, but that's as far as that data goes.
That's as far as it goes, and you also learn how to interact with peers, right? And you sort of realize the separation that you need to have between work and home, because when you start online, sometimes you blur the lines, right? And if you don't have any sense for the separation, well, you work all day and you work all night and you work all day and you work all night and you work all day, and you look up in a month and you're looking at your kid, spouse, or whoever, and you're thinking, well, who are you?
Grandkids. Wow, I didn't know. Where'd you come from?
Exactly right. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you know what? You're actually encouraging me that, maybe a few more hours off would be good. I need to hug those kids some more before they start multiplying.
Yeah, and they do that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they do. Now, I love your books. I started looking through those. Tell us a little bit about there's 4 of them, correct? Book series?
Yeah, the Independent Business Marketing Bible, and there are actually 4 different editions. And they're all different marketing consultants who have their own philosophy on how small businesses can help themselves. I mean, and one of the things I like about, all of these guys is that, they're not big names. They are in the trenches. These guys are working with, they've got their sleeves rolled up. They're working with these guys. I mean, some guys, they've got clients who are plumbers, other folks who've got clients who are, middle market businesses. So you've got the range of folks. And so they really do know, exactly what, they're talking about in terms of how business can market themselves. And I'm thinking in particular now, two of the books are in particular, they've got a specific philosophy that they call back-end specialist, which is kind of a little kind of double entendre, but the guy who, right, the guy who trained them, his name is Steve Rosenbaum. And so Steve trained these guys to basically not worry about, and this is the real kind of really sort of kind of counterintuitive thing. He's saying, well, we're not going to focus on getting traffic, right? Before we talk about trying to get people to your website, before we try to start talking about getting people in the door, we need to work on the back end of your business. Because, I mean, you think about it from a logical perspective, I mean, he's right, because it doesn't matter how much traffic, how many phone calls a business gets, if the secretary's rude, right? What is the traffic meant?
I'm done. If the secretary's rude, I'm done.
Right. And so, what he's saying to the business, what he's training these guys is, okay, well, let's start with your existing customers. Let's start looking at them from this perspective. Let's see if you have really marketed to them. Have you really built a relationship with people who have already bought from you, right? Because they already saw in you something enough that they wanted to actually make a purchase the first time. Well, have you adequately maintained the kind of relationship to them that they would buy again? And more often than not, people or business owners, and I guess all of us do this, we don't do a good enough job in really keeping those people engaged in terms of what really made them like us in the first place. And so he's really training the consultants how to do that. And then the consultants all have their own twist on that. And that's what I think is really cool. So all these guys are in the book. They've all got their twist on this one philosophy. They've all working with businesses of different sizes, and they really are, just gung-ho about helping these businesses before you talk about getting people in, to make sure that the thing is working right on the inside, so that when you do start getting traffic, then it works right. And so those are the two books. Yeah, and so that's volume 3 and volume 4. Volumes 1 and 2, these are all marketing consultants who really, I would say, have a varying perspective on how businesses should really be doing things. One guy is basically, he just consults with people on how to do things on eBay, right? Which is a little different. I saw that in
the second chapter.
Yeah. And so he's really he works with a range of people, and he really tries to help people. And I guess he's even working with businesses now to say, hey, look, you've got all this surplus stuff. Well, why are you gonna leave it on the shelf? Why are you gonna leave it here and let it rot? Why don't you put the stuff on eBay and get something back for it, as well as use it for list building? I mean, again, just really trying to using the resources, effectively to really get out to people. And I think what I like about these guys in those first 2 volumes is that I think in contrast to the guys with Steve in volumes 3 and 4, they really are there to do the front end, which is to get people in. But at the same time, you'll see most of these guys talking about fundamentals, right? So as much as they believe in social media, SEO, and all the other stuff, they believe just as much businesses got to have unique selling proposition. Businesses got to be ready to build a database, build a list. Business got to be ready to be out in the community. Businesses got to be ready to joint venture, whether or not they're online or not. And so they're talking about those fundamentals, which they're saying transcend all the stuff we talk about. So when we hear about marketing, we typically talk about SEO, which is, SEO is the thing, social media, right? Or mobile marketing. Yeah, and that stuff does matter, but if you can get people to your site or into your store, and you're not list building, or you're not trying to capture names and email addresses, phone numbers, tin can and string, you're not trying to make sure that you can get a hold of them a second time. Again, that's a waste of, okay, so you pay for a consultant. If you pay a consultant $1,000 to do SEO and you don't list build, you just paid $1,000 and you wasted about $500 of that, because those customers aren't going to come back. They don't have no reason to come back if you're not going to engage them. And so that's what I like about the guys in the first two chapters. They're really talking about not only these things that we must do, but also those fundamentals that really kind of undergird those things that really make it all work.
It's like fly-by customers.
Yeah.
Without more depth, that's all you're getting is fly-by. Well, if they're customers, then they're like fly-by customers, unless there's some engagement level.
Well, and
it's not their fault.
It's not their fault. And I thought it was just me, and I guess I should have wrote a book on this, and I was thinking about it, but
you still can.
I was thinking right, yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. But Groupon, when I was thinking, when I used to go get a group, I said, how does this work for the business? How does this help them any? They're gonna, first of all, I don't end up getting on their email list. I'm on Groupon's. Second of all, I get a great deal. They're giving me at half price. Third of all, I'm loyal to Groupon. I'm not loyal to them after the deal. How is this a great deal for them, other than I get this initial exposure? But what I've been saying, and I said from the beginning, I really should have written something. Now people are writing on it, but really, if I do a Groupon, I'm not really going to necessarily be inclined to go with that business again. I just want to look for the next deal. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if that's always a great deal to have hundreds of people flowing in. And when I'm talking to business owners about this stuff, they're confirming this. They're saying, well, yeah, I did this. It didn't quite shape up the way I thought it was going to shape up. And at the same time, Groupon doesn't really have any incentive to try to help them to do list building. So Groupon wants to make sure they build their list because that's their goal. So I think people are starting to kind of wake up to the whole thing, and I don't think that there's a problem with Groupon. It's just that the model is flawed, and it's just not a good deal for businesses. And again, it comes back to all those fundamentals, right? It's like if you're not at some point trying to capture the names, email addresses, mobile phone number, or something that you can contact with them again, it's kind of like you said, fly by customers, mm-hmm. and you don't get the depth of your investment. Because if you invest in any advertising and those customers don't come back, it's a waste of money. Yep. You got to sell, but it's a waste of money.
If it's costing them money, for example, using Groupon for the Groupon campaign, and they're losing a little bit of money on the actual deal, it seems like it's a loss unless they can get that customer back for at least another repeat sale.
Exactly. And there's no mechanism in there that I've seen for them to capture names and email addresses. So, I mean,
I don't think it's been a while since I used Groupon.
I mean, I love to buy them, right? But I guess I would never use it. But perhaps they're improving it. But again, it does come back to all these fundamentals, and that's what these guys are talking about in that book. That look, all these things are gonna. Who knows in 5 years what the next wave is going to be. Because what, 5 years ago, you wouldn't have said, or maybe 10 years ago, you wouldn't have said, well, everybody in business has got to do social media. We didn't even know what that was then.
10 years
And
ago, I'm like, wasn't
Right.
blogging just not?
Right. Yeah. And what is it? You gotta today. You gotta have a responsive web theme. Well, what was that 5 years ago?
Exactly.
Google Places and all this stuff. What was that years ago? So okay, all that's now, but 5 years from now, it's going to be something else. But at the same time, though, 5 years from now, if you don't have contact information, you're still not doing the job. No matter what.
The fundamentals, yeah.
Right, exactly. No matter what new thing is happening, not doing those things, then it's you're kind of missing the depth of your investment, So, and these guys really kind of know that, and so that's really the thrust of all these books are gonna be. The next version is going to be, taking your talent to Main Street. But we've already started the 6th edition, which is we've been really going out to, in a survey form, to small businesses. And what I'm trying to figure out is there are plenty of books out there that give advice, right? 7 easy steps, or these are things you ought to do. I want to know what they're doing that's working. So we're surveying on 52 questions, and I want to know, based on these practices, who's using this, who's using it successfully, does it work, does it matter? And then what we want to do is gather all that, and we're going to take those 52 common practices and say, okay, well, we're not going to make any judgment about it. We're just going to say, well, here's what the data says. Here's what they're actually saying that they're using that's working. And so hopefully we can structure the survey so that the business doesn't feel like they're really giving away, like the store, they're giving away their advantage by being honest about what they're using and what they're not. So that's really what the 6th edition is going to be. Best practices, who's really using them, and which ones are really working.
So almost like a metric-based strategies overview.
It is. I'm inspired by. You probably read the Millionaire Next Door and the Millionaire Mind that Dr. Stanley wrote. And one of the things I really like about that is that a lot of the statistics in there, they're semi-objective, right? And so yeah, he could write a book about what millionaires are really like, right, and what they buy and what they don't buy. But what really gives that whole book some authority is, well, there's a lot of data underneath that. And some people would say, if you read the reviews to the book, they'd say it's too much of it in there, right? The statistics really bored me. But for me, it really does give weight to what he's saying. He's not really giving his opinion. So rather than me write another book on what small businesses should do based on what I know, I'm just going to say, I want to know, here is what businesses are saying around the country, around the world. These are what they're saying is working. This is what they're doing. You make the judgment, or you talk with your consultant, or you make the judgment about which one of these things you want to incorporate into your business. So yeah, we're in the midst of getting. So we're going to do one question basically a week, gather statistics, write about it, and then as we get enough, as we collect enough, then we'll write one book on that. We get enough data, and then we'll just kind of keep it rolling and getting it out to people and let them know what's working and what's not.
Excellent. So now you said something about this is the 6th book in the series, although I feel like I'm missing the 5th book, or maybe.
Right. Well, the 5th one is going to be taking your talents to Main Street, and that's really going to be the one where we talk to people. And I really, it's for young people, but really, to be honest, I was talking to my wife today. I think it's really for anybody at this stage. If you're really looking for business opportunity, right? I mean, it's there, and
Young at heart.
young at heart. And
It's not an age thing. There you go.
it's not, and they need the help. And I mean, I'm reading about people who are sitting and just kind of waiting for opportunity, and small business, and from doing social media, right? Social media, the problem is not that people don't know what to do. It's probably they don't have enough time to do it, right? Because it takes time to be on Twitter and make something happen. It takes time to be on Facebook to make something happen. It takes time to do stuff on Pinterest. If you're really going to see something happen, you either got to have some gnomes, right, or some minions, or some right, or something.
Trouble asking gnomes why.
Or you have to get somebody to do it, and nobody can afford to pay the people. Right? Or you could probably pay a consultant to go out and hire the people to do it. Well, man, that's a lot. It's going to cost you a lot of money. And so, really, you've got to have that balance between, I mean, candidly, a business to me needs a consultant, and then they need people to execute. Because there's no way to do it. I mean, there's no way to do it affordably otherwise. And so in the future, I think that if social media goes in the direction it's going in, you're going to have people to do it. And people who are perfect to do that are people who have the savvy, or who have time, or who have both.
Exactly. I'm so thrilled. Okay. All right. So, Charles, how do people find your books?
Well, they can do it the really complicated way or the really complicated way. They can go to Amazon and just type in Independent Business Marketing Bible, or they can type my name, Charles Terrence Harper. If they type in Charles Terrence Harper, they'll find all four of them there. So yeah, Independent Business Marketing Bible at Amazon, or they can get them by typing in my name at Amazon, and so that will help them to find either way. They can find the books that way.
Excellent. Well, any last tips before we head out?
Yeah,
you had so many.
Well, as I was talking to who is it, Wade Harmon today, and it's interesting. It's a common refrain that I hear from friends and the associates that, this new age, I think we got to all sort of stick with something long enough to make it work. It's kind of like, all of this stuff works. It all eventually pays off. It just doesn't happen immediately. And so some of us, I think, if you go on Facebook, sometimes you'll see somebody like Mary Smith or Marshall Wayne. You're thinking, well, man, I should be doing it like them. It just takes time before you get there. And there are no rules on how long it takes. But typically, if you bail before you find out, sometimes that level of success, I think, at least online, is right beyond the point at which you bail. And it's typically the point at which things get the darkest, cash flow gets the tightest, and it's almost like if you can just kind of make it through that period, right, and just do what you have to, things just kind of turn. So I think what I'm learning personally, what I'm trying to tell my daughters, what I tell everybody is, it doesn't matter what it is, you just got to stick with something long enough to kind of see it through, which is
keep on keeping on.
All the lessons that we learn, is all the stuff we should have learned in high school, right? So we're still trying to learn the same lessons from high school. Nothing's really all that complicated. We just have to do it.
Exactly. As you were describing that, I'm picturing like somebody in a desert going for that, and they don't know if it's an oasis or really some water, but it's just that last foot, and they're just, they're on their belly, it's like go over that last foot. You don't know if that's the real thing, and you're going to hit the fountain of youth.
It is. It is. Yeah. And I think you've seen it. We've seen it. I mean, people just they just give up because again, it's hard when you start a blog and or you put a video on YouTube and you have one view. Right? I mean,
Yeah, some people are like, I got one view, That's a good attitude. If you're excited, that's how my daughter is. Like, I got a retweet. I'm like, oh, good, honey, I'm so proud of you. Great attitude. I love it.
Right, yeah, it's just really sticking with it,
Mhm. Well, thank you so much, Charles. I really enjoy all of these times I've talked to you. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge.
Your show. Right, yeah. I appreciate being on here.
Ladies and gentlemen, Charles Terrence Harper. And you can find him if you search for Charles Terrence Harper on Amazon. You can find all these wonderful books that he's been talking about and all these tips. And I guarantee, because I have the books, that they will help you out. So go buy those.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Don't you wanna kiss and hug me? Come on strong, go on and love me. Let's not waste that big old moon. Wake up and smell the perfume. Just say if you wanna be more than friends. Got some love I'd like to make. Baby, you can squeeze me, I won't break. We could be in a paradise, you and me. Until then, I'll remind you again. Just say when. Oh yeah, until then, I'll remind you again. Just say when. Oh baby, just say when.